So if you're anything like me, born in the 90s, you probably grew up with Hamburger Helper at some point in your life. When I was thinking about making this video, I didn't really have too many fond memories of having Hamburger Helper, but the thought of it made me like really nostalgic because we had Hamburger Helper a lot. Not like an uncomfortable amount, but enough for me to be like, I don't think I'm gonna eat this again. However, with that being said, I do remember absolutely tearing up plate after plate of Hamburger Helper when I was younger. And also, if you follow me closely enough, you know I put up polls sometimes and y'all wanted to see this. So I want to give you what you want to see. We need to start off with some sort of noodle. And my favorite way to make carnivore noodles is with ground chicken and eggs. Statistically speaking, a lot of you have already seen my mac and cheese video, and especially this one is going to be a big play on that. All I'm doing right now is cutting up about 2 pounds of chicken. So you can do this in a blender. I suggest you get a food processor. This one was 30 bucks and I've had it for roughly 5 years now and it still works fine. So if you want a food processor, I'll leave an affiliate link to one down below that I think you should get. If I can find this one, I'll link it too, just because I know this one is it just works well. But don't feel like you have to go buy one. You can also use a blender. Simply take all your ingredients, throw them into your blender or food processor, and you know, just process them. That's what you're doing. You're breaking this down into something smaller. All I'm trying to do with this is make ground chicken. I want to start with pulse and just start to break it down little by little. So just kind of, just do a few of these. And if you're using a blender, do the same thing that I'm doing, but after, you know, like 5 or 6, get a spatula and just scrape it down. And now we can. And as soon as you start seeing a ball kind of just spinning about, that's when we want to add our next ingredient. For 2 pounds of chicken, I'm going to add 4 eggs, or huevos as my Spanish-speaking friends call them. Let's also add a couple big pinches of salt, maybe a teaspoon and a half worth, and blend. All right, when you are done, it should look a bit like this, kind of pasty, honestly. I mean, that's not a great way to describe, you know, meat, but it is what it is. And this is going to act as our pasta dough. All right, go ahead and reach down below and grab yourself a Ziploc bag. So now what we want to do is take about half of this, so, you know, 1 pound plus 2 eggs, and put it into this bag. Because what this is going to allow us to do is to pipe out our noodles into some water. All right, we have our piping bag ready to go. Should have a little tip at the bottom. And what we're going to do now is get our little pasta making area kind of set up. Here I have some simmering water. I've got a paper towel to drain the pasta on. I've got a non-stick liner on a sheet pan. I've got a knife. I've got my chicken. And I got some scissors. We already have some salt in the chicken itself, but I do want to salt the water just a touch. Is that a big pinch? Let that dissolve for a second. And once that is in there, we're going to take some scissors and cut the very tip of the bag off. All you're going to do is squeeze, get a knife, cut. You're going to repeat this till it's all gone. And honestly, it doesn't really matter how long you cook this. Just make sure it's cooked all the way through. But enjoy this time lapse of me cutting little balls of chicken into a vat of water. All right, now that all of these are in here, I'm just going to kind of let them get their float on. If you do this in batches, just do about a quarter at a time if you want to do that, because you don't have to bake these. The reason why I like baking them is because it dries them out a little bit and lets the sauce I'm going to make is going to absorb better into it. And they don't have to be perfect by any means. A little variation goes a long way, especially with something like this. Just make sure to keep your balls dipped in some hot water. I think these are all pretty much done. It's been 8 minutes since I've started this, and it usually only takes about 3 or 4 minutes. So that's fine. We'll start transferring all these little chicken balls onto your paper towel just so they can drain a bit. I really wish I had a slotted spoon right now because, you know, it'd make this a lot faster, but I don't. So I can't complain, even though I'm complaining right now. You've watched me do this long enough. Let's go ahead and get the rest of these drained and out onto our lined baking sheet. I've already got my oven set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm gonna go ahead and throw these in there for about 10 minutes. And you're not trying to do anything to cook these even more. You're really just trying to get them a little bit dried out. Oh, I burned myself a little bit. They're good to go. And now we can get started on the rest. All right, all I did was remove that kind of gross looking chicken water from this pan because we're gonna use the same pan. Can you believe it? It's a 1-pan meal. Start by getting your pan to medium-high heat. And we can actually just go ahead and throw in about 1 pound of ground beef into the pan. And if you've never followed the directions from Hamburger Helper, I'm pretty sure it's just 1 pound of beef in a pan, and then you add all the other bullshit to it to, you know, make a lovely dinner. Just start browning it up. You can drain it if you want. I'm gonna keep the fat in there just because I want it. And actually, while this is browning up, we'll go ahead and add 1 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper just to get the meat itself seasoned. All right, it looks like there's gonna be a lot more grease than I expected from the beef. I think I got the not lean ground beef. So what I'm gonna do is just take a paper towel. I'm not gonna remove all of it, just, you know, some of this excess, because this is like a half cup worth of grease in there. Kind of get that down to about a quarter cup. All right, my meat is brown. Next up, I'm going to add some heavy cream. This is actually a half cup of heavy cream plus a quarter cup of water just to kind of thin it out a little bit. Add that right in. To that, I'm gonna add a quarter teaspoon of salt, quarter teaspoon of garlic powder, and about a half teaspoon of paprika. All we gotta do is get that mixed in, and as soon as that's brought back up to heat and it's bubbling a little bit, we can start slowly adding in our shredded sharp cheddar. This is just 4 ounces worth. You can add more if you'd like, and add less if you'd like. If you add less, you'll want to let this reduce until it's thick, but I'm just gonna go ahead and add all 4 ounces, just until my sauce is where I want it to be. All right, it should be looking a little bit creamy, and as soon as you kind of notice that texture thicken up a bit, you'll want to go ahead and add your chicken balls right into it and mix those in. All right, let's get that back up to a simmer till it's just a little more thickened, and it should be good to go. While it's simmering, I'm gonna give it a little taste for seasoning, make sure it's all good. Spot on. We can go ahead and cut it off. And one more thing I like to do with my Hamburger Helper, just to feel a little bit fancy, is to shred some cheese over the top. Just a little extra. Never hurt anybody. Well, I'm sure it has, but lactose intolerant people or stuff like that. All right, that's it. I kind of wish I would have let it thicken up just a little bit more, but you know, I've had watery Hamburger Helper before. If you want, you could probably skip the water. I was just worried about adding way too much cream to this, but it smells pretty good. It looks a lot better than I was expecting, honestly. All right, let's just give it a taste and rate it on our nostalgia scale out of 10. You know, I didn't do any research for this recipe other than like what kinds of Hamburger Helper they have. And I knew Cheeseburger Helper is the one we had the most. So I remember the flavor of it from being a kid. And I had a feeling there was a whole lot to it other than like salt, pepper, garlic, maybe some paprika for some color. But I think that's legit what it was. For the nostalgia rating, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 for flavor and a 3 out of 5 for texture. So that gives it a total score of 8 out of 5. Obviously, the texture is not going to be the same. You're missing a little bit of chew from the pasta. You're missing some weird, you know, fake creaminess from the cheese sauce packet. This is good enough. The flavor is pretty much on point, and I don't think anybody's going to be upset with this, especially if you're someone that's just into nostalgic things or likes remembering the past. Gallagher, Sam Kinison. Wait, that was a little too far back.